You're sitting at your kitchen table on a Tuesday night and you're doing the math again. Not because you want to, because the number in your checking account is doing that thing it does, that thing where it's technically fine but somehow still stressful, where you make decent money and have nothing obvious to show for it, where you can't point to any single catastrophic decision, and yet the financial progress you expected by now just hasn't appeared. You're not broke, you're just not ahead. And the gap between where you are and where you thought you'd be by this age is wide enough that you've started wondering if you're missing something. You are, and it's not a secret investment strategy. It's not a side hustle. It's not a course from someone posing next to a rented Lamborghini. It's 30 specific habits, so boring, so unglamorous, so embarrassing to brag about at dinner parties, that have quietly made ordinary people with ordinary salaries into millionaires while everyone around them wondered how. My name is Nick, and I've spent way too much time studying why two people on the same salary end up in completely different financial universes 30 years later. If you've ever made decent money and still felt financially stuck, subscribe, hit the like button, and stay with me, because today we're going to figure out exactly how that gap happened and exactly how to close it. Here's the thing nobody tells you up front. There is an entire economy, a massive, sophisticated, meticulously engineered economy built specifically around extracting money from people who don't know what you're about to learn. The car dealership that shows you the monthly payment instead of the total cost. The retailer who offers you the extended warranty at the register, the gym that collects your dues in January knowing statistically you'll stop going by March, the credit card company charging you 22% interest on a balance you're paying down at the minimum payment rate, the subscription service that makes canceling deliberately annoying. These aren't accidents, these aren't coincidences, these are business models, and they work extraordinarily well on people who haven't been taught to see them. Ramsey Solutions surveyed over 10,000 millionaires. 79% inherited nothing, not a dime. 75% said their wealth came from one thing: regular, consistent investing over a long period of time. One person in that study cited stock picking as important to their success. Not one. Thomas Stanley spent decades studying actual American millionaires for the Millionaire Next Door and found something that should make every influencer on the internet deeply uncomfortable. Most millionaires look nothing like what we're told wealth looks like. They drive cars more than 2 years old. They've never paid more than $399 for a suit. They live in the same house for 20 years. They are, by every visible measure, indistinguishable from their neighbors, except for what's in their accounts. That's not an accident either. That's the strategy. So this video is an investigation. The question we're trying to answer is simple. How did a person on a $78,000 salary quietly become a millionaire while the person next to them on the same $78,000 salary is still checking their account balance before they buy groceries? The answer is 30 habits, and I'm going to walk you through every single one. I'm not a financial advisor. This is educational content, not personalized advice. But these numbers are real, and they'll change how you see every financial decision you make from here forward. Let's go. Let's start with the two categories responsible for draining more household wealth than almost anything else in America, and where almost nobody realizes it's happening until it's too late to do much about it. Habit 1, buy used cars, not new ones. A new car loses roughly 20% of its value in year one. On the average $49,000 new car, that's $9,800 gone the moment you pull out of the lot. Not because you did anything wrong, not because the car broke, just because you drove it. By year 5, it's worth less than half what you paid. The depreciation curve is steepest right at the beginning, the years the original owner absorbs, and then flattens dramatically. A 3-year-old version of the same car has already taken the biggest hit. You buy it, you get most of the useful life, and someone else paid for the expensive first chapter. The monthly payment difference between new and used is $230 on average, $767 for new, $537 for used. That $230 per month invested at 8% over 30 years is $338,000. That's not counting the higher interest on the new car loan, the higher insurance rates, or the higher taxes. That's just the depreciation gap, quietly compounding into $250,000. Stanley's research found that the most common car among American millionaires is a Ford F-150, not a luxury SUV, not a German sedan, a pickup truck, 2 or 3 years old, sometimes bought at auction. The person who looks like they can afford the new BMW usually can't. The person who drives the 4-year-old Camry usually has more in investments than you'd guess. Habit 2. Keep the same car for at least 10 years. Once a car is paid off, every month you don't have a payment is money you could redirect somewhere else. Over the 5 years between your payoff date and your next purchase, that's $46,000 freed up at the average payment rate. If you invested instead at 8%, you've turned the death of your car payment into a $56,000 investment. Modern vehicles, maintained properly, routinely hit 200,000 miles. The car isn't the problem. The cultural pressure to upgrade is the problem. And the car industry spends billions of dollars every year making sure that pressure never goes away. Habit 3. Live in a slightly worse house than you can afford. The bank will approve you for housing costs up to 43 to 50% of your gross income. Most financial planners say 28% is the ceiling for a reason. On a $100,000 salary, the difference between 28% and 35% is $584 a month. Invested at 7% over 30 years, that $584 per month becomes $700,000. $700,000 you trade for a slightly nicer neighborhood where the HOA sends passive-aggressive letters about the height of your mailbox post. Here's the part that makes it worse. When you buy at the top of what you qualify for, you eliminate your margin. You're operating at 100% capacity with no reserve. One job loss, one medical bill, one spouse who needs to step back from work, and you can't make the payment. The family that buys comfortably below their limit doesn't just save more. They sleep better, they have options. Options are worth more than square footage. Habit 4. Don't upsize your home every 5 years. Every time you sell a house and buy a bigger one, you burn 8 to 15% of the home's value in friction, agent commissions, closing costs, inspection fees, moving expenses, and the inevitable 3 months of buying things the new house needs that the old one didn't. On a $400,000 home, that's $32,000 to $60,000 gone. Do that 3 times over 20 years, and you've spent $100,000 to $180,000 to move between houses that, if you're honest, were all fine. On the family that buys once and stays has a fixed mortgage payment while their income grows. Every year, housing costs represent a smaller percentage of what they earn. That's a built-in raise that requires no negotiation, no promotion, no luck, just the decision not to move. Habit 5. Rent out a room. This one requires tolerance for having another human in your space, which I understand is not a universal trait, but the math is hard to ignore. The average spare room rents for $700 to $1,500 per month, depending on your market. At $700 on a $1,800 mortgage, your effective housing cost drops to $1,100, a 39% reduction. That $8,400 per year invested at 8% over 20 years grows to approximately $384,000. There are people who have lived essentially mortgage-free for a decade through house hacking. They didn't win a lottery, they just had a roommate. Habit 6. Take geography seriously. The median home in California costs $833,000. In Iowa, it's $228,000. A remote worker who relocates from a high-cost city to a mid-cost city and keeps the same salary might save $2,000 to $3,000 per month on housing alone. That $2,500 per month invested at 8% for 20 years is approximately $1.47 million, $1.5 million, because you moved. I'm not saying move to Iowa. I'm saying that if you have remote flexibility and you're choosing between 2 otherwise equal options, the cost of living where you plant yourself is one of the single largest financial variables in your life. It deserves more than 15 seconds of consideration. Now let's talk about where the people who escaped that story put the money they saved. Because this is the part the financial media genuinely doesn't want to be as simple as it is. Habit 7, buy index funds and never touch them. Dalbar has tracked investor behavior every year since 1985. Over the 30 years ending in 2021, the S&P 500 returned 10.65% annually. The average equity investor earned 7.13%. Same market, same 30 years, different behavior. On a $100,000 starting investment, 10.65% for 30 years grows to $2.07 million. At 7.13%, it grows to $782,000. That's a $1.28 million gap, not from picking the wrong stocks, but from buying and selling at the wrong times, chasing whatever was performing, and doing all the very human things humans do when they watch their account balance move. The Spiva report tracks whether professional fund managers beat their index. After 20 years, 91% of large-cap active managers underperformed the S&P 500. These are people who do nothing else for a living. Bloomberg terminals, research teams, MBAs from schools you've heard of. 91% of them would have made more money for their clients by buying a Vanguard index fund and going home. The habit is this: S&P 500 index fund, 0.05% expense ratio, automatic monthly contributions, and you do not look at it when the market drops. That's it. That's the whole thing. Like, it's not interesting, it's not content. No, nobody goes viral for it. Yet it is, however, statistically the best thing most people can do with their long-term savings, and the evidence for that conclusion is now 40 years deep. Habit 8, max your HSA before almost everything else. This is the most underused tax advantage in the American financial system. Most people treat their HSA like a medical debit card, which is one of the most expensive mistakes in personal finance. An HSA, available to anyone with a high deductible health plan, is the only account in the entire US tax code with a triple tax advantage. Contributions are tax deductible. Growth is tax-free. Withdrawals for qualifying medical expenses are tax-free. No other account does all three. The 2025 contribution limit is $4,300 for individuals, $8,550 for families. If you're 30 years old, max it out every year, invest the funds in index funds inside the account, and don't touch it for 35 years. At 8% growth, you're looking at roughly $830,000 in tax-free money. After age 65, it functions identically to a traditional IRA for non-medical withdrawals. Here's the insane part. So 96% of HSA balances are spent down every year. Only about 5% of HSA holders invest their funds at all. Most people are using one of the most powerful retirement vehicles available to any working American as a reimbursement account for copays. If you have access to an HSA and you're doing this, stop. Habit 9, capture your full 401k employer match, every single dollar of it. Your employer match is not a benefit. It's cash on the table. It's a 50 to 100% guaranteed return on your contribution the day you make it, and about 1 in 4 employees doesn't take all of it. Financial Engines calculated that collectively, American employees leave $24 billion in unclaimed employer match every year. The average unclaimed amount per person is $1,336 annually. At 7% growth over 20 years, that single oversight costs you $55,000 per person in free money that your employer was legally obligated to give you and you just didn't pick up. If you don't know your match percentage, stop what you're doing and look it up right now. Log into your benefits portal and find out. If you're not contributing enough to capture every dollar of it, that is the single highest return financial action available to you today, and you should fix it before this video ends. Habit 10, automate your contributions so your savings don't depend on your willpower. Vanguard studied what happens when companies switch from voluntary 401k enrollment to automatic enrollment. Participation rates go from 28% to 91%. Same people, same plan, same benefits. The only variable is whether the money moves before they see it or after. This is not a character flaw. This is how human psychology works. We are motivated in waves, we get tired, we get distracted, we look at our account on a bad week and decide this month isn't the right month. Automation removes the decision entirely. Set up automatic contributions to your investment accounts on payday, set up automatic savings transfers, set up automatic bill pay. Whatever you never see, you don't spend. Whatever moves automatically doesn't get redirected to something that felt urgent on a Thursday. Habit 11, use a cashback credit card and pay it to zero every single month. The average household using a 2% cashback card earns $560 to $780 per year in rewards. Over 30 years invested at 7%, that's roughly $60,000. But that math only holds for one type of credit card user. There are exactly two types. Type 1. The card is a 30-day interest-free loan. You buy everything on it, should collect the points, pay it to zero every month. You are profiting from the bank. Type 2. You carry a balance. At 22% APR, the interest on a $10,000 balance is $2,200 a year. You're paying $2,200 a year for the privilege of not having paid last year's bills. The cashback rewards are a rounding error compared to the interest leaving your account. 46% of Americans carry a balance. If you're in that group, the rewards are irrelevant. The habit isn't optimizing rewards, it's eliminating the balance first. Habit 12, treat high-interest debt like the emergency it actually is. Making minimum payments on a $10,000 credit card balance at 22% APR takes approximately 22 years to pay off and costs over $18,000 in interest. You will pay $28,000 total to borrow $10,000. And if you'd never borrowed it and instead put that $10,000 in an index fund at 10% for 22 years, you'd have $81,000. The gap between those two worlds is nearly $110,000. It's not the result of making a catastrophic decision. It's the result of making a minimum payment every month that feels manageable and ignoring what the interest is doing in the background. Paying off high interest debt is not just about avoiding interest, it's a guaranteed 22% return on every dollar you put toward it. No investment in the world offers a guaranteed 22% return. You cannot invest your way around debt at this rate. The math won't let you. It feels like checking your balance before buying groceries, even though you make decent money. It feels like a car repair that sends you into a spiral because there was no room left. And it feels like a number that was supposed to be shrinking that somehow stays the same every month. That's minimum payments working exactly as designed. Not for you, for the bank. We're about halfway through, and I want to slow down for a second, because here's what's about to shift, and it matters. The habits you just heard are about big structures, the car you drive, the house you buy, the investment accounts you set up or ignore, the debt you carry or eliminate. These are high leverage decisions that most people face maybe a handful of times in their lives. Get them right, and you've cleared a path. Get them wrong, and you spend a decade trying to recover from a decision that took an afternoon. But here's the thing. The big financial decisions don't tell you. You can get every one of those right and still hemorrhage thousands of dollars a year through a completely different mechanism. Not catastrophic choices, not dramatic mistakes, just the daily stuff. The automatic renewal you forgot about, the lunch you bought because you didn't prep anything, the phone upgrade you didn't need but the carrier made it very easy to justify, the impulse purchase that arrived on a Wednesday and you'd forgotten about by Friday. This is where the really insidious part of the extraction economy lives, in decisions so small and so frequent that your brain doesn't register them as financial decisions at all. They feel like just living. And that's exactly the point. Nobody engineered your mortgage to drain you unnoticed, but the subscription economy, the convenience economy, the fast food economy, those are specifically designed to operate below the threshold of conscious decision making. Small enough per transaction to feel harmless, large enough in aggregate to matter enormously. The conservative estimate of what the average American household loses annually through these daily habits, dining out excess, unused subscriptions, impulse purchases, brand premiums, extended warranties, and convenience spending, is $8,000 to $15,000 per year. That's not gross income, that's money you earned, took home, and then handed back through 100 transactions you barely remember making. Compounded over a lifetime, that range is $1.6 million to $3 million in foregone wealth. $3 million. In habits so small, you'd be embarrassed to post about them. Habit 13. Build an emergency fund and treat it as non-negotiable. 59% of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency from savings, not $10,000. $1,000. And what happens when the car repair arrives, or the emergency room bill, or the broken water heater, it goes on a credit card at 22% APR, and minimum payment logic takes over. And the thing that was a $1,200 car repair becomes a 2-year interest story. The emergency fund isn't a financial goal you graduate from, it's a firewall. 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting in a high-yield savings account, earning something in the 4 to 5% range right now. It doesn't grow spectacularly, it grows slowly, and it does one job. It prevents the single most common path into high-interest debt, which is a normal life event arriving without a cash buffer. The return on a fully funded emergency fund is not measured in interest. It's measured in what it stops. Habit 14, cook most of your meals at home and batch cook so it's actually sustainable. Americans now spend 59.6% of their total food budget on food away from home. The average household spends $279 per month on restaurant meals and takeout. A home-cooked meal costs roughly $4 per person. A restaurant meal runs $10 to $30 per person. The markup is somewhere between 3 and 7 times, shifting from majority eating out to roughly 80% home cooking saves an estimated $2,000 to $4,000 per year. At 7% over 30 years, that's $200,000 to $400,000. I'm not asking you to never eat at a restaurant. I'm pointing out that $279 per month on takeout, when the same nutrition costs $80 at home, is $199 per month, leaving your wealth every single month. For decades in exchange for not having to chop an onion. The reason this habit fails is exhaustion, not intention. 2 working adults, a long commute, 7 p.m. on a Wednesday, cooking sounds like punishment. The fix isn't motivation, it's Sunday batch cooking. 2 hours, enough protein, grain, and vegetables prepped and in the fridge to cover 5 weekday dinners. You're not cooking every night, you're assembling, that's sustainable. The math is the same. Pack your lunch too. Buying lunch costs $10 to $15 a day. Packing it costs $4 to $6. Over 250 workdays, that gap is $1,300 to $2,500 per year. At 7% over 30 years, that's up to $237,000 just from lunch. The social pressure is real. Your colleagues go out and there's ambient pressure to join. Go once a week, pack the other 4 days. Like the math will thank you even if your colleagues tease you about it for approximately 1 week before they forget entirely. Habit 15. Keep your phone for at least 4 years. A flagship smartphone costs roughly $1,000. Annual upgraders spend $1,000 per year on phones. A 4-year cycle costs $250 per year. The difference is $750 annually. Over 40 years of adult life, $750 per year invested at 7% is approximately $148,000. Apple and Google now both offer 7 years of software updates on their flagship devices. The phone you bought 2 years ago does everything you need. The reason you feel like it doesn't is that Apple spends several $billion a year in marketing to make sure you feel that way. That is not a figure of speech. It's a budget line on their income statement. The desire to upgrade is manufactured. Like the $148,000 compounding consequence is real. Habit 16. Buy staple goods in bulk and switch to generics. Buying in bulk saves an average of 27% on common household goods. Some items, paper towels, batteries, cleaning products are 50 to 65% cheaper per unit at warehouse stores. On a $6,200 per year grocery budget, strategic bulk purchasing on items you reliably use saves $300 to $620 annually. The discipline is buying things you actually need, not buying things that are impressive value for something you wouldn't have otherwise bought. Generic medications are the sharpest version of this habit. Generic ibuprofen is legally required by the FDA to contain the same active ingredient in the same dose as Advil. Walmart's equate ibuprofen $3.88 for 200 tablets. Advil $14.97. Same molecule, same dose. $11 of pure brand premium. Well, Consumer Reports found store brands tied or beat national brands in 60% of direct comparisons. You're not buying worse quality with generics. You're refusing to pay for a commercial that was designed to make you feel like you need to. Habit 17. Use the 24-hour rule before any purchase over $50. Americans spend an average of $5,400 per year on impulse purchases. 48% of social media users have bought something impulsively after seeing it on a platform, averaging $754 per year from social shopping alone. The behavioral mechanic is this. The dopamine hit peaks in anticipation, in the moment of wanting, then drops sharply after the purchase. This is why things you bought impulsively often feel anticlimactic the moment they arrive. The reward was in the wanting, not the having. Waiting 24 hours lets the wanting fade. And most of the time, you'll find you no longer actually want the thing. If preventing 30% of $5,400 in annual impulse spending sounds modest, that's $1,620 per year. Over 20 years at 7%, that's $71,000 from a rule that costs you nothing to implement except patience. Habit 18, get a library card and use the Libby app. A library card is free. The Libby app connects to your card and gives you free ebooks and audiobooks on your phone. If you read 24 books per year at $20 each, that's $480 in annual savings. If you subscribe to Audible at $15 per month. Switching saves $180 per year. Beyond books, most libraries provide free streaming through Canopy, free online courses, free digital magazine access, and sometimes museum passes. The public library is one of the best financial deals available to every American. A remarkable number of people use it for nothing except occasionally returning something late and paying a fine for the privilege. Habit 19. Never buy extended warranties. Retailers keep 50% or more of every extended warranty price as pure profit, higher margin than whatever they actually sold you. Only 1 in 10 vehicle warranty holders has ever used their warranty, despite 47% purchasing one. Consumer Reports position after decades of tracking this, skip it. Products either fail quickly, like under the original manufacturer's warranty, or they last a long time. Extended warranties are priced to profit from the middle scenario, which doesn't happen often enough to justify the cost. Decline everyone, put the $200 to $400 into savings instead, and you'll almost certainly come out ahead. Your credit card likely already extends manufacturer warranties by a year at no charge. Check your card benefits before ever considering a retailer's offer. Habit 20. Audit your subscriptions every 3 months. A C+R research study asked Americans to estimate their monthly subscription spending. Average guess, $86. Actual measured amount, $219. That's a $133 monthly gap, $1,596 per year, leaving accounts on autopilot for services people don't even remember signing up for. The gym membership is the signature example of this industry's business model. January memberships subsidize April memberships. The fitness industry knows with actuarial precision that most people stop going by late February. They are not hoping you'll stay. They're counting on you not to. 67% of gym memberships go entirely unused. And the industry collects $1.3 billion per year in dues from people who are paying for the idea of going to the gym rather than the actual gym. If you're in that group, the habit isn't go more often. The habit is cancel and do push-ups in your living room. Set a recurring calendar reminder every 3 months, 15 minutes, a bank statement review, asking one question per line item. Am I using this? The answer will surprise you. These last habits don't require cutting anything. They're about finding money that's already earmarked for you, and in systems most people have never learned to access, and actually taking it. Habit 21, refuse to let your lifestyle inflate with every raise. Goldman Sachs found that 40% of households earning over $300,000 are living paycheck to paycheck. Over $300,000. And these are people who make more in a month than most families earn in a year, and they're still stretched. Fortune reported that workers earning over $500,000 are delaying dream vacations and home renovations because of financial stress. This is not a math problem. This is lifestyle inflation, like spending scaling with income so perfectly that the savings rate never actually improves. You've probably felt a version of this. The raise lands, and for about a week, you feel genuinely ahead. Then the apartment upgrade feels reasonable. You've earned it. Then the car lease comes up for renewal and you go one tier higher because you can now technically afford it. Then the restaurants get slightly nicer, the vacation slightly longer, the wardrobe slightly better. None of it feels reckless. Each individual decision is defensible. And then you're at $100,000 wondering where it went, the same way you wondered at $80,000 and at $65,000 before that. The income changed, the margin didn't. The technical term for this is hedonic adaptation, the psychological process by which new circumstances, good or bad, become your new baseline. The research on it is bleak. A salary increase produces measurable happiness for about 3 to 6 months, and then you return to your previous set point. The apartment that felt luxurious when you moved in feels normal by the second lease renewal. The car that felt like an upgrade feels like just a car by year 2. So you upgrade again to chase the feeling, and the cycle runs on indefinitely, and the income that was supposed to buy you freedom ends up buying you a slightly nicer version of the same stress life. Here's what the math looks like when you break out of it. If you earn $60,000 and get a raise to $80,000 and keep your $60,000 lifestyle, you're suddenly saving $20,000 per year. At 7% over 20 years, that $20,000 per year grows to roughly $820,000. If you inflate to $80,000 spending, you saved nothing. The raise that could have made you wealthy instead keeps you living exactly at the edge of your income, just at a higher edge with a nicer car in the driveway. The behavioral fix is to automate the savings before you experience the money. The day you get the notification that your new salary starts next paycheck, log into your 401k and increase your contribution before the new amount hits your account. Whatever you never see, you don't budget around. Whatever you don't budget around, you don't miss. Raise that funds your future is the one that never touches your checking account. Habit 22. Track every dollar. Not obsessively, but honestly. Only 32% of American households prepare a detailed monthly budget. The personal savings rate in 2025 is 4.9%. These two numbers are not unrelated. Studies consistently show that budgeters save approximately 20% more than non-budgeters, even controlling for income. The act of tracking makes unconscious spending conscious. Conscious spending is dramatically more intentional. The psychological resistance is real. Looking at where your money went can feel like stepping on a scale after a bad month. The number might be disappointing and you can't unsee it, but you cannot fix what you don't measure. You cannot change a pattern you haven't identified. And the truth is almost always more workable than the anxiety of not knowing. You don't need a color-coded spreadsheet with 47 categories. You need to look at the bank statement once a month and answer 2 questions. Where did it go? And does that match where I wanted it to go? 15 minutes once a month. That's it. Habit 23. Negotiate your salary every single time. 64% of job seekers accept the first number they're offered. 78% of employers are expecting negotiation, and have built room for it into the initial offer. The people who don't negotiate are not avoiding an awkward conversation. They're handing back money that was budgeted for them, that someone was literally prepared to give them, that they walked away from because asking felt uncomfortable. Yeah, let me be specific about what that discomfort is actually costing you. Carnegie Mellon's research calculated that not negotiating a starting salary costs $1 million to $1.5 million in lifetime earnings. A $5,000 difference in starting salary, one 5-minute conversation, becomes $600,000 in career earnings over 40 years once you factor in raises, promotions, and retirement contributions, all calculated off that higher base. Here's the psychology of why people don't do it. They catastrophize the outcome. They imagine the hiring manager being offended, withdrawing the offer, thinking less of them. Harvard negotiation research found that candidates overestimate the risk of an offer being pulled by 33% compared to how hiring managers actually describe the situation. Most hiring managers expect you to negotiate, and some respect you more for doing it. The job offer does not evaporate because you said, I was hoping for $75,000. Is there flexibility there? It almost never does. And here's the number that should make you uncomfortable if you're still on the fence. 87% of people who negotiate get more than the original offer. The average increase is nearly 19%, which means the negotiation conversation has roughly a 9 in 10 success rate, produces nearly a 20% improvement on average, and compounds into hundreds of thousands of dollars over a career. The ask is uncomfortable for 60 seconds. The silence while they think about it is uncomfortable for maybe 30 more, and then it's over. The compounding runs for 40 years. This applies not just to new jobs, but to annual reviews. Most people accept whatever percentage their manager offers without a word. The habit is to research market rates before every review conversation and come prepared with a number, not aggressively, not with an ultimatum, just with data and a specific ask. The people who do this consistently earn meaningfully more over a career than those who don't, not because they're better at their jobs, but because they asked. Habit 24, shop around for insurance every single year. 92% of Americans who switched auto insurance companies saved money. The average saving was $461 per year. Premium spreads between companies on identical coverage commonly exceed $500 to $1,000 annually. Yet 43% of Americans have never switched providers, and roughly 2/3 don't shop at renewal. Here's why insurance loyalty is expensive. Insurers offer their best rates to acquire new customers, not retain existing ones. The loyalty discount they eventually offer is almost always smaller than the new customer rate at a competitor. Call annually. Tell them you've been shopping around. Watch how quickly the retention team finds room in the pricing. Saving $500 per year on auto and home insurance invested at 8% over 30 years is $56,600. The call takes 20 minutes, habit 25, negotiate your recurring bills, and stop assuming the listed price is the final price. Consumer Reports found that 92% of people who called to negotiate their cable or internet bill got money back or received an upgrade for the same price. 92%. The bill negotiation company Billshark reports a 90% success rate with average annual savings of $300 to $800. Their estimate is that Americans could collectively save $50 billion per year by simply asking telecom companies for a better rate. Telecom companies build retention budgets specifically for customers who call and ask. When you say, I've been a customer for 3 years and I found a better deal, is there anything you can do? There is an entire playbook on their end for giving you something. The only thing between you and that playbook is the decision to make the call. Similarly, DIY basic car maintenance saves $15 to $75 per oil change versus a shop. Basic home maintenance done yourself, replacing air filters, caulking windows, cleaning gutters, saves 40 to 60% on labor. These aren't about becoming a handyman. They're about not paying someone $80 to unscrew a panel and replace a $12 part. Habit 26. Never buy a boat RV, or vacation home until you've run the actual numbers. I want to be clear. I'm not against enjoying your life. I'm against the specific financial structure of certain enjoyment purchases that consistently destroy wealth quietly over time in ways people don't see until they're in too deep. A boat depreciates 10 to 15% in year one. Annual ownership costs, high storage, insurance, maintenance, winterization, run $5,000 to $8,000 for a mid-size vessel. Most owners use their boat for roughly 20 days per year. That's $250 to $400 per day on the water before fuel. The same experience rented would cost $400 to $800 for a weekend with no off-season storage bill, no winterization appointment, and no 37% depreciation hit. Like, the two best days of boat ownership are the day you buy it and the day you sell it. Everything in between is a recurring line item in a budget that was never supposed to have one. An RV loses 20 to 30% in year one. A $100,000 RV is worth $70,000 to $80,000 after 12 months and costs $10,000 to $30,000 per year to own. Most owners use it a handful of weekends annually. The fantasy of the open road is real. The math of financing the hardware to access it is not. Habit 27. Negotiate your medical bills. Almost nobody does this and almost everyone can. This is the most overlooked money-saving habit in America, and the gap between what people pay and what they could pay is genuinely staggering. Medical billing in the United States operates on a system that virtually nobody outside the industry understands. Make the number on your bill, the charge master rate, is essentially a fictional starting price that bears almost no relationship to what the hospital actually expects to collect. Insurance companies negotiate it down by 40 to 60%. Medicare pays a fraction of it. The cash price is often dramatically lower than the insured price. And for the uninsured or underinsured person who pays the full amount without question, they pay the number on the bill, which is the number that nobody who actually understands the system pays. A 2022 study found that roughly 50% of patients who attempted to negotiate a medical bill were successful in reducing it. The average reduction for those who negotiated was 35%. On a $5,000 bill, that's $1,750 back in your pocket from a single phone call. On a $20,000 hospital stay, a 35% negotiation saves $7,000. A medical debt is also frequently settled for significantly less than the original amount. Hospitals routinely accept 50 to 60 cents on the dollar for accounts they believe might otherwise go uncollected. The script for this call is simpler than you think. You call the billing department. You say you're having difficulty paying the full amount. You ask whether there's a financial assistance program. Nearly every nonprofit hospital is legally required to have one, and many for-profit hospitals do as well. You ask what the cash pay rate is. You ask whether they'll accept a payment plan at zero interest. You ask whether the bill can be reduced if you pay a lump sum today. Each of those questions is a separate door, and any one of them might open. People don't do this because it feels presumptuous. Grace, it feels like asking for something you don't deserve. But medical billing is not a fixed price transaction. It never has been. The number on the bill is an opening position, and the hospital's billing department knows that. You asking for a reduction is not rude or unusual. It is the normal functioning of a system that was designed to be negotiated. The only people who pay the sticker price are the ones who don't know that. Habit 28. File your own taxes or use free software for straightforward returns. For most W-2 employees, professional tax preparation costs $200 to $600 for work that IRS Direct File, Cash App Taxes, or IRS Free File, available under $84,000 income, will do at zero cost, saving $300 per year over 40 years at 7% compounds to roughly $60,000. The caveat is real, and I won't skip it. Self-employment, rental properties, stocks, and complex investment situations can benefit from a CPA who knows the deductions available to you. If a $500 fee finds $2,000 in deductions you'd have missed, the math favors the accountant. Know your situation. For simple returns, the software is accurate and the savings are real. Habit 29. And I invest in one high value skill every year. I deliberately, not randomly. This is the one habit on this list that doesn't save money. It makes it. And most people are doing it backwards. Here's what most people do with self-improvement spending. They buy a $27 book on mindset, a $197 course on productivity, a $47 Notion template pack, and a monthly subscription to a learning platform they open twice before forgetting the password. The spending feels like investing in yourself. The return is essentially zero because none of it targets a specific marketable skill gap in a specific financially meaningful area. Here's what actually works. Identify the one skill that, if you developed it meaningfully over the next 12 months, would either increase your income, reduce your costs significantly, or open a new income stream entirely. Then spend on that skill specifically, not generally. Not a broad learn to code resolution, but a specific framework for a specific application relevant to your actual job. Not a vague get better at sales, but a structured course on a technique you can apply in a specific context next month. The reason this matters financially is compounding. A skill that increases your income by $5,000 this year compounds into raises, promotions, and trajectory over decades. A skill that saves you $2,000 a year in outsourced work returns that amount every year indefinitely. Skills don't depreciate, they often appreciate. The habit is this: once a year, identify the skill, budget $200 to $1,000 for it, execute on it for 12 months, measure the result, repeat. Done consistently over a career, it is one of the most reliable wealth building mechanisms available, and one the stock market can never take from you. Habit 30. Apply the impulse spending rule to every financial decision you make. This is a meta habit, a habit about how you make financial decisions rather than a specific decision itself. The 24-hour rule we covered for purchases over $50 scales. For purchases over $500, wait 48 hours. For purchases over $5,000, wait a week. For major financial commitments, like a lease, a loan, a timeshare presentation you somehow got trapped in, apply the same principle. The urgency you feel in the moment is almost never real urgency. It is manufactured urgency designed by people who have studied exactly how to make you feel like you need to decide right now. You don't. You almost never do. The deal will still be there, or a better one will be. The discomfort of saying, I need to think about it, costs nothing. The cost of not saying it can be enormous. Here's what happens when you add this up honestly. The conservative estimate of money American households leave on the table every year through unclaimed 401k matches, insurance overpayment, impulse spending, lifestyle inflation, high interest debt, dining out premiums, extended warranties, and forgotten subscriptions is $8,000 to $15,000 per household. Per year, over a 40-year working life invested at 7%, the low end of that range is $1.6 million. The high end is over $3 million. That's not the gap between rich and poor. That's the gap between two people on identical salaries who made different decisions about ordinary things. The person who looks wealthy and the person who is wealthy are usually making very different choices. And the person who is wealthy is almost always doing less, spending less, showing less, and compounding more. Morgan Housel wrote, "Wealth is what you don't see. It's the cars not bought, the diamonds not purchased, the watches not worn. The person driving the 6-year-old Camry with the library card and the packed lunch, that person, at 55, has options. Options to retire early. Options to take a year off. Options to say no to the job they hate without catastrophe. Options to be genuinely generous with people they love. Options to live their actual life instead of spending it servicing the appearance of one. And the person who did all the visible things, the car upgrades, the house upgrades, the lifestyle that looked the part, is still at their desk at 65, working not because they want to, but because the payments require it. They are, in every meaningful sense, a prisoner of the image they built. The walls are nicer than they used to be. They still can't leave. I want to say something directly to the people watching this who are thinking, okay, but it's too late. I'm already in the house I can't quite afford. I already have the car payment. The credit card balance is already there. So I've already made most of these mistakes. It's not too late. The person who starts investing at 45 beats the person who starts at 55. The person who eliminates high interest debt at 38 beats the person who carries it to 50. The person who negotiates their salary for the first time at 35 captures a decade of raises based on that higher number. Every habit started today is better than the same habit started next year. The math is always in favor of now, even when now feels late. So let me give you permission to stop performing wealth and start building it. You don't need the new car. You don't need the upgraded apartment. You don't need the watch or the restaurant or the brand name on the label. None of those things compound. None of them show up on your net worth statement. Like, none of them buy back the options that quietly disappear when your fixed costs consume everything you earn. Here's what I want you to do right now. Not start with the easiest habit. That's too vague. One specific thing, log into your benefits portal tonight and find out your 401k match percentage. Find out what you're currently contributing. If there's a gap, if your employer is offering to give you money and you're leaving any of it unclaimed, increase your contribution before you close this tab. That single action is a 50 to 100% guaranteed return on those dollars the day it hits. There is nothing in finance with a better immediate return, and it takes 4 minutes. Everything else on this list can come after that. But that one, tonight, you don't get a trophy for looking successful. You don't get a medal for the car payment. Nobody throws a party when the subscription renews. The system is designed to extract money from you quietly, consistently, in amounts small enough not to trigger alarm and large enough to matter enormously over time. You now know exactly how it works. That's the only advantage that was ever available.